afternoon, and good evening to you wherever and whenever you are joining us. Welcome back to our latest edition of What Caught My Eye, or WCME Sports. As always, I'm your host, the coach Nick Vesci. I'm joined by the boy Stephen Vesci and the man Stephen Comlow.
Hello.
If you're new to the program, we like to think of ourselves as the sports show for sports fans about sports. We like to focus on what happens in between the lines of competition, more so than any of the noise that happens outside of it. Also, if you're new to us, don't forget to follow us, subscribe to our channels on YouTube, iHeart, and Spotify. Our socials, we have Instagram, Facebook, and X, formerly Twitter. That's at WCME_sports. Our episodes, they drop every Wednesday at noon on those aforementioned platforms. Now, without further ado, we get into our top catch for the evening. This week, we stuck in the realm of hockey, ice hockey, that is. And our top catch is the USA-Canada Four Nations Faceoff final. It happened on Thursday night, in case you missed it. It was, one of the most expensive tickets in hockey history, which is amazing for an exhibition game and a tournament that took the place of the All-Star game and All-Star festivities. So to see that is pretty amazing. The hype around it was amazing. Again, if you missed it, it was USA versus Canada. They met a week before that. The USA beat Canada 3-1 in Montreal, and this final was in Boston. A couple storylines, a lot of injuries going into it, especially big for Team USA. Matthew Tkachuk was playing injured. He wound up not playing like the whole, essentially second half of that game. Defensive-wise, Charlie McAvoy suffered a bizarre injury. He got hurt originally in the Finland game and sucked it up through that and the Canada game. Wound up having to be admitted to the hospital with an infection in his shoulder injury, which is crazy. Like maybe an abscess formed from the contact and the abscess, ruptured, which could explain it. But that's a freak thing, right? So they're down defensemen there. You're down all these players here. Canada's dealing with injuries too, right? This whole reason Drew Doughty was there. Cale Makar had been injured or sick earlier in the tournament. So both teams dealing with stuff, right? It's like the Bull Durham thing. They got the mound. We're dealing with a lot of shit out here, right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of what's going on.
Rooster, no one knows what to get them for their wedding.
No.
Candles make a nice gift.
Yep.
Let's go out and turn two.
All right. Yeah, so all the storylines going into it, everything built up. The hype was amazing. The tension, you could cut it with a knife in that arena. At home, if you were watching it, it felt like you could cut your own tension with a knife. It was a pretty remarkable for an exhibition game that really means nothing in the grand scheme, right? No monetary value, but for pride, amazing what pride can do for people. If you missed the game, Canada's Nathan MacKinnon, arguably the second best player in the world, I think. I would say that behind Connor McDavid. He opened the scoring less than 5 minutes into the first period with a wicked wrist past American goalie Connor Hellebuck. But the Americans were able to answer back before the period was over with a tally by Brady Tkachuk, the brother of Matthew Tkachuk, and the offspring of the great Keith Tkachuk. Less than 4 minutes to go in that first period. Before we move on, do you know they have a younger sister who played field hockey in college?
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Do you know where she played?
UVA.
Swear to God, if you say UVA.
UVA. She played at UVA.
No way.
Yes. I was watching a thing where Brady was on, I think with the Kelseys, and he was wearing a UVA shirt, and I was like, what the hell? How? Obviously, he didn't play hockey there because we don't have a Division I team. Yeah. And there's no way he knows people who played hockey there because it's just, random people. He grew up in St. Louis. His sister played field hockey there. Like, that is small world wild, right?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. In the second period, American defenseman Jake Sanderson, who was an injury replacement for McAvoy and others. So again, he wasn't even supposed to be there. Quinn Hughes was supposed to be was there. He got hurt. They had to bring in their seventh defenseman to play. McAvoy goes down. So Sanderson is essentially the eighth defenseman on the team. Who hadn't practiced them at all, but somehow Sanderson scores the go-ahead goal in the second period. It's like when they put in
slots it too.
A defensive replacement in baseball.
He put that
ball
thing
always
top cheese where mommy hides the cookies, baby, up on the top shelf. That was a beauty.
Pretty amazing. I thought that was hilarious. He has had 5 goals all year coming into this tournament for the Senators. Scores a goal in arguably the biggest game of his life because he's 22, 23 years old, and Ottawa hasn't been to the playoffs in God knows how long. But Canada was able to respond again as Sam Bennett slotted one home after a beautiful feed by Mitch Marner, who did a great play drawing the defense up. But I would argue the defense was lacking because it was Adam Fox, who, yes, plays for my Rangers, but falls in that same category as Quinn Hughes and Cam Fowler and Mike Green, where their game is offense first, defense second. And I think that's something that you can't have.
Sam Bennett,
when you're trying to win playoff and games like this, every defenseman has to be Jacob Slavin, who is essentially sec def right now because of how well he played.
He was incredible.
In that
but
tournament.
when I was watching that, I was like, I'm worried about Sam Bennett. Like, he was the one guy I was worried the most about because he
shows up big in big games.
Yeah, he's not the big name, but he's the guy that does the little things that exactly what he did. He picks Fox's pocket, goes right in and scores.
God, it feels so criminal that he plays for Canada.
Him and all the Panthers. All the Panthers on that
American.
team play the same way.
Yes.
Matthew Tkachuk plays the same way. Sam Reinhart.
It's just
and
great culture.
Carter Verhaeghe, they all play the same way. They show up when it matters the most, and they do these little things that don't show up on a stat sheet, but that's why they're world champions and won the Stanley Cup.
Outstanding culture in Florida.
Yes. Pretty amazing for a team that we discussed last year. They'd been bad. Bad is a nice word to say for basically our entire lives in the last 5 years, maybe even less than 5 years. So we went into the third period deadlocked at 2 after a scoreless third. The teams went into overtime, and the overtime rules for the championship game were the same as playoff overtime for the NHL, 5-on-5, 20 minutes, continuous until someone lights the lamp. And with a little over 8 minutes gone in that extra session, Connor McDavid, who we mentioned before, who, again, I think is the best player in the world. I think most people would say he is the best player in the world.
He is.
He scored the game-winning goal for Canada for them to hoist or win the Four Nations Faceoff 3-2 over the Americans. It really felt like that goal was like the physical embodiment of Sidney Crosby passing the torch to Connor McDavid. Literally, like almost the same circumstances, close to the same spot on the ice, believe it or not, against the same team, and it felt like you just watched him. If he wasn't anointed already, he was anointed.
Too. He was horrible in that game. He was missing passes that he never misses. He was bad touches, and it was like he's too good to not do something.
Yeah.
You know he's going to do something, and then you leave him wide open in the slot.
It's the one person on that team you don't want to leave wide open.
And you know, it's funny, too, you bring up they wasn't playing that well. I feel like in that Olympic final 15 years ago, I don't think Crosby was playing that well in that game either. And somehow he showed up and scored the goal.
They're too good. So it's like the law of averages, right?
Yeah.
You just
they're too good.
You just need, I mean, like, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. You know, and like that's a dude who's just always going to be prepared. Right? Yeah. You even if like you're on the bench and thinking like, "Oh, wow, good for us. McDavid's having an off night." Like you can't slack off of him. Like like we've talked about it a lot with different players. Like we talked about it specifically a lot over the playoffs last year with Matt Rempe. You know, like there are just certain players that you need to look for, and you need to have one person on the ice you're glued to that guy, and it seemed like there was just a lapse there.
Yeah,
I think Matthews
where we
got
lost
tired.
him. It just seems like we lost him.
I think he got in that extra OT. Like I believe that was the same sequence where Matthews got stoned by Binnington on point blank and could have won it.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
the McDavid goal was on a face-off that occurred shortly after
that.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. I think Matthews was tired and lapse in judgment, just got lazy and left the best player in the world wide open.
But you know, again, tired, not tired, whatever. I mean, we can't take. I mean, like, yes, there's obviously going to be circumstances surrounding it, but we can't take anything away from Connor McDavid and Team Canada. I mean, all credit to them. I mean, I'll be the first one to say we talked a lot of shit a week ago, and
Sears is still tied one.
We talked a lot of shit, but you know, like I'll be the first one to say, like, give credit where credit is due, you know? An entire country was talking shit. 2 countries probably were talking shit and writing off Jordan Binnington. Mm-hmm. And that dude, like, polar opposite of what we've seen, like no soft goals, like everything that he gave up was hard fought and earned. You know what I mean? Like he's exactly he played exactly like the kind of goalie you would want in a finals,
Are
right?
you?
We're
Are
talking
you?
we're talking Darcy Kemper when the Avs won it. We're talking Holtby when the Caps won it. I mean, Binnington showed up in a huge way for that team.
Are you reading my notes? Because it's literally what I had next about Jordan Binnington. It
Why?
was, I think, whoever's calling the game, was it Sean McDonough was calling the game?
Yes.
Probably.
Said this is like being back in Boston in 2019, 6 years ago, right? Six years ago, when he led the Blues to their only Stanley Cup. Like, it did look like, it was oddly reminiscent of that. He, for again, as much flack as he got from the hockey world of like, God, if Canada didn't have him, they would have been smoking people, right? He was so good, especially in the third period and overtime. He finished the game saving 31 of 33 U.S. shots, good for a .939 save percentage.
Which is well above his percentage for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah.
Well above it.
I mean, he's one of those guys, too, who obviously steps up when the lights are brightest. And give credit to John Cooper, who love John Cooper as a coach.
Florida coach.
Tampa coach.
Tampa coach, sorry. Different Florida coach. Other
No,
Florida.
for sticking with Binnington and saying, no, he's the guy we got. He's the guy we need. He's the guy we want.
He turned into prime Marty Brodeur.
I mean,
just kept waiting.
Pick out a championship winning goalie. I mean, you could say Brodeur, you could say Hasek, you could say Tim Thomas. I mean, like the guy looked unbeatable. I mean, how many of those goals or how many of those opportunities would have gone in the first meeting of these two teams, right?
There were three just overtime that were how did we not score?
Yeah, that were slotted for the trophy.
I mean, with Austin Matthews, one of the best goal scorers in the world, right in front. Kachuk, that save against Kachuk was insane. I think the save against Matthews is his best one.
I mean, they say that like the mantra for goalies is to be a good goalie, you need to make every save that you're supposed to, and then some of the ones you're not supposed to. And that's how you get remembered. That's how you get slotted in history as a good goaltender. And God damn it, he did it that night. Like that, this is gonna be remembered forever. And he deserves every ounce of credit. And every single person, myself included, that hated on him owes that guy an apology.
Yeah, he was arguably Canada's best player in that final. A couple guys I want to highlight. We mentioned both of them, Jacob Slavin and Austin Matthews for the U.S. It felt like coming out parties for them. And what I mean by that is coming out for the American audience. Obviously, Austin Matthews, if you're a hockey fan, you know how good he is. I mean, he has a chance to go down up there with, the Teemu Selanis of the world as one of the greatest goal scorers in the history of this game. But he plays in Toronto, like the biggest Canadian market, right? And so you lose that fact that he's an American, a Latino American from Arizona, right?
Who
doing these
has
things.
Already lost 3 Game 7s going into that building, by the way.
But what I'm saying is he doesn't get shown enough on our television.
No, he doesn't.
You only know about him if you're a true hockey fan here in this country, whereas a guy like a Crosby, because of him being on the Penguins.
Household name.
Yeah, and Ovechkin, those guys. But Matthews and McDavid are every bit as good as those guys were in their prime. They really are. I mean, you look at the numbers back it up, too, in terms of the points that those guys put up. It's just them playing, north of the border, I think you don't see them as much. And then Jacob Slavin on that flip side, he's a defenseman.
So good.
He's a defenseman who's not an offensive first defenseman, right? And he plays for Carolina, who not that big of a market, but who's had success. He's in the playoffs a lot, but he's playing essentially the equivalent of like an offensive lineman, right? You're not noticing him until something like this happens, and everyone goes, "Holy shit, Jason Kelsey's amazing," right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of what that felt like for Jacob Slavin. Is holy shit, wow, what an incredible defenseman that the U.S. and Carolina has. That again, obviously the hockey world knew, but for many other people, like, who is this dude? That's incredible. How good to shut down the greatest players in the world. Again, we just said they had the 2 best players. McDavid and McKinnon are the 2 best players in the world, I think, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And to shut those guys down, and Crosby, and the laundry list of Hall of Famers that are on that team is a pretty remarkable achievement for a guy who's not as well known as his counterparts.
I'm going to take it a step. I'm going to take it a step further for like Slavin and Sanderson. A lot of people were calling for one of them to fake an injury so Quinn Hughes could come play. Like those dudes were just lights out. I loved watching the way that they played. It's another one of those like shut everything else out and go out and play your game. And both of those guys I thought played impeccable in the finals.
Yeah, I loved Ray Ferraro. He was doing the inside the glass, right?
The glazing comment.
Yeah, but before that, I loved his description of like basically like he's not the biggest, he's not the fastest, he's not the strongest, he doesn't have the best skill, but he's a hockey player.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's in the right spots at the right time. He's smart.
I want you to be a hockey player.
I am a hockey player.
Yeah, and I'll go out and I'll make the prediction now. If the U.S. goes in the Olympics next year and both Quinn Hughes and Adam Fox are on the team, they will not win the gold medal.
I agree.
Whoa.
Less Rangers on that team. Too many. What, Trocheck? Fox?
Trocheck and Kreider.
Kreider's he's too old. I love Kreider. He's just too old.
I think that come Olympic time, coaches will have more time and preparation to get
they're
their
gonna have
players.
Quinn Hughes and Adam Fox out there. Those are two guys who won the Norris Trophy back-to-back years. Quinn Hughes won last year. Fox won the year before.
I like Quinn Hughes.
They're both gonna be out there, but they're the Harry. They're the Harry Maguires of soccer or of hockey, and that's the one for you, Kamlo. Who, in a video game, right? Overall rankings. In a stat sheet, it's all going to show up, but they're offensive first defensemen, which you can't have if you want to win. I mean, Harry Maguire plays for Manchester United, right, Kamlo? How is Man U doing?
Well, I don't know if Harry Maguire can shoulder all of that blame.
It does. It's not about that. It's about the correlation. They're horrendous, right? They're porous defensively. Kamlo, have you seen them? Do you know where they are on the table?
No,
they're closer
15th.
to relegation than they are
15th. Yeah, but I'm not going to compare soccer to hockey, Nick.
But what I'm saying is the style that Harry Maguire plays, where he is too forward up the pitch, is similar to the way that Adam Fox and Quinn Hughes play, where they are doing too much with the puck. They create too many turnovers. They lose the puck
you saw it with the Sam Bennett goal.
Yeah, they lose the puck in bad places on the ice, and they don't play man-to-man defense or physical defense well enough for you to win in these moments. They're the perfect Alain Vigneault, Bruce Boudreau players. The perfect guys for those teams. Let me have them, and we'll win a President's Trophy, and we'll put the most points in the season, but we'll get our ass kicked in the first round and lose, and we'll never win a Stanley Cup. That's the type of player that they are. Mike Green.
Vancouver's in a good spot, though. They're slotted to be a wild card team this year.
What I'm saying is that those type of players will win you games in the regular season and put up points and win awards, but will not win you championships. You cannot win championships with those type of players. You can't. There's a reason the Caps, when they had Mike Green, were so bad in the playoffs. And they went on and won when they got rid of him, and they brought in guys like Carlson and Brooks Orpik and Matt Niskanen, who are defensemen first. And because that's what you need. If you have enough offensive firepower, you don't need that extra from your defenseman, especially when someone is not good defensively. Quinn Hughes and Adam Fox are not good defensively. They're not. They get bullied around. They get pushed around. They lose possession during forecheck too easily. But you put them on a power play and you put them in the offensive zone, they can make some magic happen. But you're not going to win the tough, tight-checking games against elite physical teams in these winner-take-all games if you have those guys out there. They're just not.
I concur.
Thank you. And okay. Well, played Danny DeVito.
I mean, no, sorry, I'm looking at Quinn Hughes. He's a plus 15.
I don't care about that. Are you listening to me, Kamlo?
No, I'm listening, but like that's a number that speaks to his defensive acumen.
No. I don't give a shit about that. That doesn't necessarily. It doesn't, right? Because you could be plus 15 if you're out there and your team scores 8 goals but gives up 6, and they do that every game. You wind up with that plus minus. That's a flawed statistic. That's
I like
he's a good player.
The beer crack is crazy. Who was that? Who was
Nick.
that?
I am
my
drinking
point.
beautiful Catoctin Creek.
The conversation is over.
No
We're
smell,
moving
no
on.
Imagine you can walk around drunk all day.
Not an ad. Not an ad.
Not
We are
an
not
ad.
sponsored by Catoctin Creek.
As much as
But-
I would like to be. We are
But
not.
Catoctin Creek, if you're listening,
If you're listening,
unless
Yeah, unless you're Canadian, because you'll probably
Shit.
shit on us.
shit.
But anything else from this game? I thought it was one of the most well played hockey games that you'll ever watch. There's one penalty that Trocheck took that they had to call, but other than that, there were no penalties. And not because the ref said we're going to swallow the whistle.
No,
We're going to play
it's
old
just
school
hockey.
Mark Messier rules. It was because it was that clean of hockey, that well played by the greatest players.
Because everyone knew the cost of going down a man in this game, and so I thought it was a pretty clean game. I definitely enjoyed watching it, and I think as a precursor to next year's Olympics, I could not be more fired up.
yes,
I could not be more fired up for Olympic hockey next year. This is going to be so good.
absolutely.
Now, I am curious to see, and obviously, we're a year out from it. I am curious to see how Gary Bettman handles NHL players and international hockey during the season, because I can't imagine he's happy about Matthew Tkachuk being hurt, about Charlie McAvoy. Charlie McAvoy, I mean, the doctors in Boston did not mince words. They said this man, Charlie, was mishandled and was not treated appropriately after his injury, and everything got worse. The infection got worse before he got to us. And so, I mean, shout out to Charlie McAvoy. We loved watching you play. I hope you get better. But and I've said it before. That's always been Gary Bettman's gripe with allowing NHL players to participate in international play.
His ratings just went through the roof.
Yes, his ratings went through the roof, but now for the last quarter of the season, there are some teams that are going to be missing key players and are going to have an inferior product on the ice because of it.
That's not going to hurt that much.
I don't think Tkachuk or McAvoy would trade that experience.
No, they wouldn't, but you don't think had this not been an NHL production, Gary Bettman 100% would trade it. Because now the Boston market's suffering, the Florida market's suffering.
But overall, your hockey isn't suffering. Your viewership is the highest it's ever been.
No, I'm saying obviously next year come Olympic time, let's say
but let's
say injuries repeat themselves. Gary Bettman's gripe with allowing the NHL players to compete outside of the NHL during the season has always been players get hurt, and now my organization has an inferior product because of it, which is why they weren't allowed to play in the previous Olympics.
That's a flawed thought process, though, because it's not a zero sum. That's looking at everything as zero sum. That this happens, and so we lose all of this. But just having the fact that these players will show up in the Olympics will increase the viewership and money that you get after the Olympics. And going forward, it always will. It
will grow the game, and in the long term too. It will grow the game immensely.
I think, you're absolutely right, 100%. But I think his idea of growing the game went out the window when he started selling sponsorships on helmets and jerseys. I have to watch, if I want to watch a Toronto game, I have to read milk stitched across their chest. That's horse shit. Fuck that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Do
you think he gives a shit about he doesn't give a shit about growing the game. He gives a shit about his bottom dollar, and these players are his cash cow.
Yeah, but again, like we said before, though, everything has to, if it's going to be authentic and good and work, it has to be player driven. This whole tournament was player driven. Yes, the NHL put it on, but the fact that the energy and the passion and saw these guys killing each other out there was all player driven. And at the end of the day, fans gravitate towards that because all fans want, and I'm paraphrasing Rich. I'm paraphrasing Rich Eisen here a little bit. Is that fans just want to see that the players care as much as they do. That's it. That's what you gravitate towards. Is that I'm watching a Yankees game as a Yankees fan, but because I know that every Yankee out there gives a shit and cares immensely about what happens on the field, and if they don't, Kramer and Newman boo them out of the city and pour beer on their heads, right? That's what happens, right?
Can we tangent for a second? Speaking of the Yankees, how do you feel about them possibly allowing players to have facial hair?
It's not possible. They can. They
already allowed it.
Yeah.
No, didn't they just make a big like headline article about like players are now going to be allowed to like
Yes.
grow like full beards and shit?
you can
It
have
has to be
a
groomed
beard,
clean-
so you can't have Brian
Well, yeah,
Wilson, Brent
my
Burns.
work requires me to have a groomed beard, and look at me.
Yeah. Well, I know that's the gray area,
That's right.
but no, I've heard mixed reviews. I feel like though on the whole, players are okay with it, especially because now it's
Preparation H does feel good
on
the whole.
Thank you, Scott.
Anyway, I just had one last thing with the hockey.
Yeah,
I thought third period and overtime, U.S. was the better team. Unfortunately, it didn't break that way.
Binnington was the better goalie.
Binnington was the better goalie, correct. But I also think if these teams played 10 times, they'd split 5-5. The level of talent on the U.S. has never been this high, right? The skating ability. No, since when have we ever been able to skate with the Canadians? Never.
Their time is done.
Like, shut them down because we can.
But
So
yeah, no,
That was my takeaway, is that these teams are way more even.
Yes.
Did you hear the song that they got announced to, by the way? It was the new Linkin Park song, Heavy as the Crown.
Oh, really?
Ooh, that was electric. I got up out of my seat. I was like, here we go. I think I had to take my dogs outside real quick so they could pee and I wouldn't be interrupted during the game. No, I took no, like my literal like 2 dogs. You saw one last week. I had to take them outside like so they could like relieve themselves so I wouldn't be interrupted during the game, and like I'm like standing out on the porch and like I had the TV up loud enough that I could hear, and I audibly screamed in the neighborhood like, "This is what we play for!"
Great.
Yeah,
that's boosted ratings right there. Moving on, next thing we're going to talk about was some NHL action that happened after the Four Nations Faceoff was over. The season kicked back up again on Saturday, and now we're in the heat of the playoff races. I wanted to start off with the Capitals. Your Washington Capitals, Kamlo. They had a busy weekend lighting the lamp. I think you said 15 goals in a 24-hour period, so they smashed rival Pittsburgh 8-3 on Saturday, and then came back against the Oilers and smashed them 7-3. In that second game, your boy Alexander Ovechkin, the great 8, he had a hat trick. Johnny on the spot. He had a hat trick in that game. It's his 32nd hat trick of his illustrious career, which is good for a tie for 5th all-time with Phil Esposito. And he tied Jaromir Jagr's record for most game-winning goals with 135. He's now 13 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time goals record. Yet somehow, the Caps, who I think coming into this have the best record now in the NHL, were the only team in the league to not have someone play on any of the Four Nations Faceoff teams.
You don't think that these first 2 games showed just how big the chip on their shoulder is? Baby, I think on one shoulder, it's how dare you exclude every single one of us, and then on the other shoulder, it's this is how rested we are.
Yeah.
And it's just come get them, boys. Yeah, that was awesome to see, dude. Did you see Ovechkin's like empty netter? That was a long empty netter.
He's had a few of those this year.
Yeah,
that were long empty netters.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hear anyone say he's just padding his stats getting these empty netters. I don't give a shit. A goal's a goal. The puck goes in the net, it goes in the net.
And no one pulls their goalie when they're winning. You know what I mean? Like shut the fuck up. Like,
yeah.
Well, they pulled the goalie with 3 minutes left, and I remember the announcers were like, "That's too early. Like, what are they doing?"
Mm-hmm.
Well,
but they were also down like 3 goals.
Yeah, conventional wisdom used to be that you're not pulling this guy more than like a minute and a half left. But more as we get into the analytics type of thing, you're realizing that, wait, if I can pull him, the earlier I pull him, the more it's like I'm on a power play if I can keep possession of the puck. And I want to be on a power play as long as I can. So pull them then, because the idea there too is if they score the goal with 3 minutes left versus 30 seconds left, the game's still over anyway, right? It doesn't matter. It's kind of like, you know, the fourth down type of mindset of like, okay, going for this at this point means this, right? It gets into that analytic thinking. So like I think Rod the Bod, Brindamore, pulls his goalie pretty early for most coaches. But
It's all about feel and flow. I mean, some teams will pull their goalies with 2.5, 3
feel
minutes.
and flow, is that the
if they feel they have the tempo and the momentum and the presence in the offensive zone to sustain, yes, pull your goalie. I mean, it's anyone that watches hockey knows that it's not really that uncommon of a thing to pull your goalie with 2.5, 3 minutes left, especially when you're down 2. You know what I mean? It's not that uncommon. So I mean, I didn't have an issue with it from the Oilers side of things. Obviously, knowing what I know now, I'm clearly a little biased, but I mean, it is what it is. I don't see a reason to critique them for it.
Is Feel and Flow the latest line of feminine care products, by the way?
Brought to you by What Caught My Eye.
Yeah, right, branching out, diversifying our portfolio right there.
But I think that put Alex Ovechkin as the most hat tricks for someone older than 30 years old, by the way. Peak old head. That put him at, I think it was 19 since he's turned 30 years old, which is awesome.
Someone alert JJ Redick, a superstar that's old, is playing hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And doing his job.
Golly. Yeah. And he's the first player to score 200 goals in 3 different decades. So, that's kind of akin to, a lot when the Lakers retired Kobe Bryant's 2 different jerseys. And they, a lot of people said, Kobe Bryant had 2 Hall of Fame careers in one, or Tom Brady had 2 Hall of Fame careers in one. That's kind of the era where, you could say that, Alex Ovechkin has 2, possibly 3 Hall of Fame careers in one career where he's scored 200 goals in 3 different decades. That's insane.
Actually, it's more like, and I saw a statistic the other day.
Please.
LeBron James is the only player in NBA history to airball a free throw in 3 different decades.
Jesus Christ. I don't see how those 2 are related at all.
Tell JJ.
Preparation H does feel good on the whole.
That guy's a billionaire and he's out here playing. Man, out here doing his job. That's incredible.
It is incredible. Warren Buffett doing his job, right? Wow.
I'm I saw JJ Redick. They had that clip and it was the NBA used it as a promotion thing, LeBron James tough, and I was did they learn nothing from what we just saw in the Four Nations? Meanwhile, Sidney Crosby's back out there after the Four Nations playing on back-to-back nights. He's not complaining. He's not doing anything. He's not saying I need load management. He's out there playing hard because that's his job. Yeah, it's hilarious how out of touch the NBA is.
Well, I mean, I think that's why this was kind of a wake-up call for fans because, football dominates stuff in our country, right? Sports in our country, football dominates.
Months.
And for a lot of people, when football season's over, they don't watch much sports at all because it's, they're looking for something.
They turn the countdown on their phones until college football starts up again.
Spring practices.
Yeah, and I think what we saw here, and I think I saw this somewhere too, the NHL or hockey has never been closer to usurping the NBA as the second most popular sport behind football. And I think a lot of what we're seeing here kind of resonates with football fans because football, for as much of a diva fest as it's become of late, is still a tough man's sport. But you're going out there ripping your body to shreds for your team, and I think they saw these hockey players as they're okay. Gladiators. Football seasons are football 2 season, yes, they have the UFL, the boys Michigan Panthers sweet ass shirt he's wearing.
Mm-hmm.
They have that, but they saw this hockey as an extension of that American football spirit. And I think that drew a lot of fans into it, and why you're seeing the Norfolk Admirals here sold out on Saturday night. First sellout of the entire year on Saturday night for their game. Right?
That's awesome.
So I think you're seeing more and more of that of people who because the biggest issue with hockey, and the same thing with baseball, with killing baseball, is access. It's not easy to watch these sports, whereas every night, every cable channel, someone has a basketball game on right now.
And it should be really easy to watch the sports. One, MLB has 162 games. Ridiculous that we can't watch it. NHL plays an NBA schedule. It's 82 games, right? they're doing a little bit better with the NHL, but it's still like the local.
There's still
Unless you have
teams.
ESPN Plus. ESPN
There's
Plus
still
will let you,
teams
which I
that
watched
like.
that on.
So I still have a lot of friends out in Colorado who are big Avalanche fans, and they can hardly watch games out there because the Caps have the Monumental Sports Network now,
Yep.
but the Avs are in a big dispute. Their Avs local network is in a big dispute with NHL Network and ESPN about who gets the rights to the game, and so he doesn't get to watch a lot of Avalanche games, which is it's a travesty, is really what it is. And for the going back to the football player point and the football watcher point, it's no mystery to anyone that listens to us or knows us is that we're a big fan of linemen and position players like that, and people that have an appreciation for those players and those positions should definitely gravitate towards hockey, because we talk all the time it's garbage time, the Eagles are going to put in their second stringers, their third stringers, but those linemen don't take a play off hardly, just like hockey players don't take a game off,
or a shift off.
Yeah, or a shift off unless they're grievously injured. But even then, it's a rarity. We've seen hockey players play after having a finger severed. We've seen hockey players go back to the locker room, get stitched up, and come back out. There's no turf toe excuses. There's no bruised knee excuses.
I think Matthew Tkachuk had a broken leg during the Stanley Cup Finals last year. Your boy Ovi broke his leg earlier this year, right? He was only out for 2 weeks.
No, it was 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Yeah, he was in a no contact training jersey, I think, after 3.5, but
which is crazy.
He didn't come back to play a game until after
But
6 weeks.
I told you guys a story. I forget, it's someone on the Stars. I forget who it is. It might even be Jamie Benn, but it was someone we would know on the Stars. Took a stick to the face, smashed a bunch of teeth, cut his face open. They sewed him up, put a guard on, and he went back out there. After the game, they did x-rays. They found they had sewn one of his teeth into his chin. He played the rest of the game with a tooth sewn into his chin, was at practice the next day after they took the tooth out, wearing a thing. No excuses. Yeah,
it's
it
culture.
is.
It's this is the closest thing to a sport that's I think the UFC, right? These dudes are gladiators, they're warriors, they're any adjective or synonym you can think of, right? They're just absolute animals.
I think it's more of the rule number 76, no excuses, play like a champion. It's that thing that we go back to that Rich Eisen quote of, we just want to see them care as much as we do. I know about you guys, I have shown up to work hurt, in pain, sick, feeling like garbage. I
went to work after your brother's bachelor party.
I was ill, literally ill. I couldn't get off the couch, but I've gone to work where I could barely walk.
Oh yeah, I remember going into a nice team meeting that Monday morning, and I was like, oh yeah, I just got back from the bachelor party. Oh, I had some people saying oh, you don't look too beat up. I had a cup of coffee in my hand. Oh yeah, I really don't feel too bad. I'm just shaking.
I was actually sick though. Our entire family got sick when I got home. The children, the wife were all laid up after that for various illnesses. There are a lot of people who go out there each day at their job and their back hurts and they got to shovel coal. Right. And their back is in horrific pain. Right. And so those people, those blue collar, put nose to the grindstone, get the job done by any means necessary. That resonates with a hockey player because that's the culture in hockey, is that. Whereas in other sports, it's well, you know what? I'm making so much money. I don't need to do this. And that
I'm making so much money. They
off.
would be a fool to not use me when I'm better. Whereas hockey, next man up. Right?
Yeah,
you take a day off. Oh wow, we can get the same productivity for a guy who is who costs us way less, right? I mean,
someone's out to take your spot.
Yes, but it's gonna be a guy with a killer instinct coming up behind you. Happens all the time.
He's trying to make the roster, right? He's trying to make the team, like those special teams guys in the NFL or something. But it's also what we've said before, what Nick has said a lot, is it has to be player driven. And remember when the NBA was player driven and how great it was when it was MJ, Kobe, Vince Carter, Dwayne Wade, when it was those guys.
Kevin Garnett, Shaq, Barkley.
T-Mac.
David Robinson, Karl Malone, John Stockton. I mean, all those guys.
Manu,
all those guys
Tim Duncan,
played.
Dirk Nowitzki,
They
Steve
played
Nash.
every freaking game. But if you look at their numbers, like unless they were again grievously injured, those guys played every game. Think about even going back further. Willis
because
Reed.
they were competitive.
I mean, look at
do you guys know
what
the story
Larry
of Willis
Legend
Reed?
did later in his career. You know what I mean? Like,
Do you know the story of Willis Reed? You know who he is?
no.
He played for the Knicks. I want to say he won Finals MVP back in the 60s or 70s. He played on literally his leg was broken. Was limping up and down the court for the Knicks and won. I think that's the last time the Knicks won a championship. Was Willis Reed out there? Literally his leg is broken. Could you imagine? Again, you don't want someone out there on a broken leg. It's bad. But could you imagine just that mindset of any NBA player now? These guys sit up playoff games because they're afraid of being hurt for the next year, and they just have like a bruise or a strain. It's like he literally played a game with one leg that was broken just because he wanted to win that much. And that, like you Steve was saying, that's all player driven. Like that's not the owner telling him you best go out there. That's him and him saying, I'm going to be accountable to my team, and so I'm going to do everything I possibly can. That was what made Michael Jordan and Kobe and some of those other guys so great is that was their mindset all day, every day. Off the court, that was their mindset. And PK Subban, who I know mixed feelings on, I like PK, but he essentially said that. He's like, give me the Michael Jordans and Kobe's of the world all day, every day. He's like, you don't have my respect as a professional athlete if you don't essentially care that much about your job.
He's 100% right.
You need to. It can't be enough to love to win. You need to hate to lose, right? I mean, go back to. I mean, the show Shoresy, the spinoff of Letterkenny, with that Jared Kiso does about hockey, where he plays just senior whale shit hockey. I mean, the
whale shit hockey
mantra of the team is, we're not going to lose again because we fucking hate to lose. Right?
It's competing, right? Like you need to compete and want to be. If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. That to me was always a thing that, for some reason, the NBA just completely lost. Is that the best players want to play against the best players? Like that's why MLB has the best All-Star game. It's best on best, and it's I've never seen this guy pitch before. He's trying to strike me out and throw 100. I'm trying to take him deep.
Yeah.
Right. That's what's so great about the MLB All-Star Game. What was so great about the Four Nations. It was pride in your country, and it was the best against the best, and it was competing at the highest level. And for some reason, the NBA just
doesn't
care about it.
They either don't care or they refuse to make the adjustment.
Yeah, but again, it kind of goes back to two things. So you guys said earlier, you said one, player driven, and two, bottom line, right? As in financial bottom line. The financial bottom line for the NBA has dictated that these are okay things. Like if the bottom line starts to shift, which it's possible we're seeing now, if that shifts, then you're going to see a shift because you'll see owners and coaches and league executives not want to promote certain players and promote a different ideology and different mindset, right? It all goes back to those two things. And that's, you have to have that perfect balance of those to have a successful sport. And I think that is, for a lot of people, what turns them off of the NBA.
Yep.
But for, other people that may turn them on to the NBA, right? You have to balance all those forces of nature, but it's
one of the reasons why I love college basketball too. And I've always loved it. And I've always thought well, why do I like it? Like, it's because those guys in college always play hard. If you do not play hard, it doesn't matter where your draft prospect is. Your ass meets bench.
And you're right. Even if you don't play hard, your ass meets bench in college, and you get drafted in the pros, well, that didn't affect the product you watched in college. Good for you. You had the measurables. They found you. They drafted you. Whatever.
But I'd rather watch a guy that's the eighth guy coming in, and he's playing harder than the star guy that can maybe throw down a tomahawk, like windmill, whatever, dunk, and shoot an NBA three like at 50%, but he's not playing hard. He's lazy on defense. He's not rotating the proper spots. He's fouling because he's lazy. He's doing things he's not supposed to be doing. He's making a bad pass. He's too selfish or whatever it may be. Like, I'd rather watch the guy come in and compete and play within the team. Speaking
of college basketball competing, as we move on here, the one team I want to talk about embodies a lot of what you're saying, boy, and you may know who I'm about to bring up, and that's Houston.
Yes.
Houston, They had a hell of a week this week. They took down two top 10 teams. That's impressive. They beat Iowa State, who was number 8 at the time, 68-59. Then they went on, and last night on Monday, they beat Texas Tech, who was number 10, I think. At that point, they played them 69-61 in Lubbock. They clinched a share of the Big 12 regular season title for the second straight season, and they've only been in the Big 12 for 2 years.
Incredible.
The culture, again, all the things you said, culture, Kelvin Sampson's culture he's built there is phenomenal. The way they compete on that team on both ends of the court is phenomenal. And for whatever reason, we talked about this before. I don't understand why they are so underappreciated.
It's because of that style, because people don't like watching their style because it's not pleasing to the eye. That's the reason why they're underappreciated. And until they win a national championship, they will always be underappreciated. It's like UVA. I mean, completely different
Bennett
styles.
Effect, yeah.
Completely different styles, but I mean, Houston plays at the third slowest pace, I think, this year. They play more deliberate, but they get after you on defense, and they have, I mean, really one top level scorer with LJ Cryer, right? That's the reason why they're always underappreciated. They have to win a national championship, and then you're going to go, wow, love this team.
It's kind of like the good old boys club in college basketball. You get preferential seating and things when you're in that good old boys club, like Michigan State and Tom Izzo are in the good old boys club. Duke has always been in that good old boys club.
I always love the Tom Izzo. Like, never want to see Tom Izzo in March. Yes, he has a good record in March, but he has one national championship in 25 years.
Yeah,
right? We always talk
same numbers. UVA, Jay Wright.
It's hard to win national championships.
But Villanova had to break through that as well.
Yes,
they used to get screwed in seeding. They'd get a number 1, but then they'd pair them with an 8-9 team that really should be like a 5, and they would lose to like NC State with TJ Warren. Is that who's with TJ Warren on NC State? And it's like that dude in that team. That's not a 9 seed. That's a 6 seed. But they would do that to Villanova until Villanova broke through.
Yeah, there's 2 8-9s this year that are gonna screw people over.
Say Gonzaga and UConn?
Kansas and UConn and Gonzaga. There's 3. Kansas, UConn, and Gonzaga. They're gonna screw someone. Probably like Tennessee or something.
Yeah, and Alabama. Yeah, I could see them getting into trouble because of that. But yeah, Houston. I want to talk about them just because. Right. How many teams are going to win 2 top 10 games in a week? And we would be like people would be all over them, right? The sports shows would be like, wow, Duke is the greatest team in the country, but yet Houston does it, and it still feels like no one's talking about them. Like all they do is win. All they've done is win the last however many years, right? Isn't it like some stat that they've won the most games of any team in the country the last 3-4 years? Something crazy like that. All they do, and all Kelvin Sampson has done is win. And maybe part of the disrespect towards them comes from Kelvin Sampson's previous stop at Oklahoma, where things got a little messy there. I think there's like some sort of weird violations that happened. But I believe he was the coach for Blake Griffin, right, when they were really good. But I wonder if some of that plays into it, which I don't think is fair. I think he's an excellent basketball coach. I think he does the single most important thing, which is create culture, like positive culture, and you see his players respond to it. And I don't know, Houston's a team every March for me. I want to pick them to win it all. It's just it's that UVA thing. It's like hard to pick them because you haven't seen it yet. But they have the worst they've done in the tournament. I think in the last 5 or 6 years is go to the Sweet 16. That's their baseline is Sweet 16 every year.
If they can make shots, LJ Cryer has got to be on. If they can make shots, they can beat anyone, right? I would argue they're the best team in the country if they can make shots.
Well, okay, John Madden. If I just made every shot, we'd be the best team in the country. And Brett Favre ducking in the boom.
I get it, but if you watch them play and the style, it's a good point. If you watch them play, the goal is to score more points than the other team. They let too many teams stay with them because of their inability to make shots. That's the issue with them.
I would say, I agree with that. Moving on, another top 10 matchup I wanted to highlight was Tennessee and Texas A&M. I think it was number 6 and number 7. Chaz Lanier of the Volunteers had a career high 30 points, thanks in large part to going 8 for 13 from downtown to lead the number 6 Volunteers to a 77-69 road win over Texas A&M in College Station. Tennessee is, to me, back to Houston thing. Tennessee is reminiscent to me of Houston, that old school kind of Rick Barnes coach. You see a lot of that in Kelvin Sampson. They do play defense, which is not something you see as much in the SEC with a lot of run and gun. But they get hyped up more, and I don't know. Tennessee to me just doesn't scream like championship caliber team to me. But now since I said it, it's on here. They're gonna go make a run and win now. So Knoxville, you're welcome for that ringing endorsement. But
execute.
Execute.
Wanted to highlight that Oregon. They erased a 17-point second-half deficit to defeat number 11 Wisconsin 77-73 in Madison on Saturday. The Ducks' Nate Biddle led all scorers with 23 points, 6 boards, and 3 blocks. I gotta say, I saw that coming a mile away.
Did you watch? I turned it off because I was like, well, I just wanted to see a score update. I'm like, okay, Wisconsin's kind of got a handle on it. I'll just turn it off and come back to it or whatever. Look at my the app and see the score update. It's 3-point game with 7 seconds left. I'm like, what the hell just happened? And then I turn it on right for that, right for the inbounds pass, where the guy just completely drops the ball and goes right out of bounds. I'm like, Oregon's making this 3. Yep, made it. Overtime, Oregon's win. Yeah, that's
buckets.
I don't know how you choke a game away, but that's
typical Wisconsin.
That's something that their stock is through the roof. They're rising to a 2 line. They have everything. They look like they could be the hottest team in the country come tournament time. And then they just decided to stop playing. And it's now you gotta almost try to flip a switch back on to get your guys to play hard again. It's this could be a problem.
Yeah. No, I before that game started, I was like, yeah, Oregon is going to beat them. This seems too obvious to me, as much as a Badgers fan as I am. I've seen this script written before. Because, again, we make it sound like Oregon's bad. Oregon's a tournament team.
Good.
Oregon's very good. They were ranked as high as close to the top 10 earlier this year. You got a great coach in Dana Altman, I believe is his name, who shows up in March. He does his best coaching, too.
Who?
He's very underrated, in my opinion. But it seemed like this was all set up for Wisconsin to lose this game, especially with it being at home and the high that they've been riding. So I wasn't shocked there at all. Moving on to some West Coast action. St. Mary's, they clinched the WCC regular season title for the 3rd straight season. Did you know that? 3 straight years for St. Mary's winning that conference with a 74-67 victory at Gonzaga in the Kennel. Thanks to 18 points from Mikey Lewis off the bench. I said this before, St. Mary's, you don't want to play them because they are just such a well-coached, Randy Bennett is their coach, such a well-coached team. They have again, we talked about this before, guard play is paramount in March in college. And Augustus Marshallonis, who is the son of a Hall of Famer.
It's a great name.
Is phenomenal. He's as good of a point guard as there is in the country. And that is in all respect to Zakai Ziegler and Braden Smith and whoever else you want to throw in there with those guys. Marshallonis is that good because he is a pass-first, manage the game type of player. And that's what you need from your leader. He is the leader on the court. And you can literally see it. If something is breaking down, he runs and gets the ball, and they're looking to get the ball to him just so he can sell things down and set it up. And that is rare. You most of the time you see guys just kind of let them fend for themselves. But he is the floor general in every sense of the term. And that is a team that, I don't know what their seed is projected. It's probably that 7, 8, 9, 10 area.
They might be higher. Let me give you a quick.
I thought that's where they were. I don't want to see them in the second round if I'm a 2 seed. Let's just say that's not a team I want. Moving on to your Big 12 boy, the BYU Arizona game. I don't know if you stayed up for it. That was
I did not stay up
wild game. I stayed up for it. That was crazy. That was a fun game. Right, a lot of things happened in that, but essentially what you had is Richie Saunders for BYU scored 23 points, but his biggest 2 points were the game-winning free throws with 3.2 seconds left to lift the BYU Cougars to a 96-95 win over number 19 Arizona in Tucson. It was a controversial call on the shooting foul that Saunders had, and it's one of those where one angle, if you're looking at the ref, it looks like the guy clearly hip checks him. Another angle, it looks like the guy doesn't even touch him. It's like that one of those weird optical things. So it's kind of like, yeah, you feel aggrieved if you're a Wildcats fan, but also like you kind of understand how one ref called it. And as an impartial viewer, you're not too bent out of shape about it. But there was a little like altercation kind of at the end of the game. I think that the Arizona fans are saying some disparaging remarks towards the BYU players. But that was a fun, very much back and forth game. Very much, again, high offensive output, 96-95. Guys are firing on all cylinders offensively. It was fun to watch. But what I thought was cool is the first time that BYU has won back-to-back games versus ranked opponents since 1988.
BYU
That's crazy.
Stock up. They're doing very well.
But BYU normally they do that and then they'll get like a 7 seed and then get killed by whoever they play.
That is,
and it's
that
like,
is
what?
exactly what they do.
It's like Iowa. To them in Iowa, they'll do this. Look at their resume and you're like, man, these guys can score. They got athletes. They got all this stuff going for them, upperclassmen, and then they go get a 6-7 seed and just get stomped by whoever they play.
Yeah, St. Mary's is a 6 seed at the moment. Yeah,
they're good.
According to Joe Lenardi,
they're good. This next one just for you, boy. The Drake. They survived another close game, defeating Northern Iowa 64-58 in overtime. Had to go to overtime, and their score was 64-58. Right. Bennett Sturtz, who you've talked about before, he paced all scores with 26 points and 10 rebounds. I think he averages about 20 points a game. I think it's like 19 point something a game. He's a really good player. He's one of the best mid-major players in the country. But the Drake, they need every win they can get because they
12 seed. They have them as a 12 seed right now. Their first round matchup, if everything would just stay the same, which it won't, would be Oregon. That'd be fun. But yeah, Bennett Sturtz, if you haven't watched him play, watch Drake and watch him play. He's a smooth athlete, smooth basketball player.
Yeah, he's fun to watch. Yeah, Drake's good. They just looks like they're playing like tight, like they are like afraid to lose because they know they don't have that margin for error that like an Oregon does, right? Oregon's gonna be in the tournament. We don't know what seed we're gonna be, but Drake doesn't, and they're playing like that. Whereas we've said they beat Vanderbilt. They beat some good quality teams earlier this year. They're a good quality team. They're a tournament team, in my opinion, that should be there regardless of what happens in the next coming weeks. But you can't leave that stuff up to chance. They've got to almost like make sure they don't lose again until the Missouri Valley Conference final.
Yes, correct.
Which is crazy. This last one here. After trailing 37-25 at halftime, Indiana stormed back to defeat rival Purdue 73-58. On the 40th anniversary of Bob Knight throwing the chair across the floor.
Bobby Knight.
The Hoosiers outscored the number 13 Boilermakers 48-21 in the second half. And Mike Woodson, who head coach of Indiana, believe he played for Bob Knight in college. He found the chair that he threw across the floor and was sitting in it the whole game.
God, that's legendary.
That was the chair he said is awesome.
That's awesome. Legendary.
And yeah, so that was my favorite thing. I think I saw
that.
The chair survived.
It's amazing. I got one more team to talk about in college basketball because they deserve it. VCU.
Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah. They are a legit team and they are built to be a giant killer. They play fast, hard, together, and unafraid.
And they can shoot.
Correct. Yes. And they're not afraid to go do it. To go shoot. Like you talked about with Drake, they're kind of getting tight. VCU is the exact opposite.
Yes.
They're feeling it. Feel the flow. They are feeling it right now.
Harness good, block bad.
Huge win against George Mason, the real battle for Virginia this last Saturday.
70-54.
Yeah, huge win.
Them.
They're now
playing Richmond as we speak.
They're beating the shit out of Richmond.
Yeah, Richmond's
terrible.
Go Spiders.
Yeah, I know. I had like a memory on Snapchat that this time last year I was at the Richmond game.
Come on, Spiders! I got Spiders fever.
Yeah, VCU deserve to mention they should also be an automatic qualifier.
Let's go.
Agreed with that. Next, go to our Mimosa Minute for this week, brought to you as always by Maine & Co., the creators of the modern mimosa. That's MAYNE and company. Visit them at mainsip.com. Follow them on Instagram at main.co to stay updated on all new releases, products, and just order yours today if you want. right? Most in a can. It's delicious. It's phenomenal. I wouldn't endorse it if I didn't personally enjoy it. I don't put my stamp on things like that. I'm not a sellout. But go ahead and order your stuff today from them at mainsip.com. Maine & Co. championing women's athletics since 2020. We turn to the world of women's basketball. And really the biggest one, if we don't get into this stuff, the biggest one we have to talk about is the NC State Notre Dame game. I don't know if you saw that. Number 13 NC State versus then number 1 Notre Dame was a 2-overtime absolute thriller. NC State prevailed 104-95. It's the, I believe, 5th time in program history that the Wolfpack have defeated an AP number 1 team. NC State also beat number 20 Georgia Tech earlier in the week. That's a hell of a week. That's a fantastic week for NC State. Yeah. LSU's Michaela Williams, she scored 24 points to lead the number 7 Tigers, who I think are still like 27-2, something crazy, to a 65-58 win over number 14 Kentucky. Oh yeah, here's LSU is 27-2 in a game back of South Carolina in the SEC.
Did you see the camera?
Dude, that was something straight out of The Office.
It was so good.
My God.
Did you see that, Nick?
No, what happened?
Oh my God.
Enlighten us, please.
So Kentucky player gets open, shoots like a little baseline jumper, and it goes in, and the camera, like because of where the Kentucky player was, it was kind of like in front of the LSU bench, and the camera just goes from like the girl making the shot straight to the bench to Kim Mulkey, and just shows her face, and she's just like
Jim Halpert.
Yes, like so pissed off, but like is so mad that she's just like, I'm not even going to say anything or do anything. It's just like, how do you leave her open?
Kim Mulkey is an incredible coach, by the way. It's amazing that she's taken 2 programs, Baylor and now LSU, to national prominence that were not programs before. And I don't think Baylor's done anything since she left either. She gets a bad rap, I think, for being a little too like intense, which I get, like Bobby Knight, we just talked about him. But man, does the woman win and just win and win and win and doesn't stop winning. She gets a bad rap for that for whatever reason, but she is one of the best coaches in the country and will go down as one of the greatest coaches ever, to be honest with you. Last thing I have here, Jules Spear had 20 points to lead number 15 Tennessee to an 88-80 victory over number 18 Alabama on Thursday night. Just like in the men's SEC, the women's SEC is loaded, right? So their regular season actually wraps up sooner than the men's. They enter their conference tournament sooner, but they start their March Madness tournament later. I don't know, it doesn't make sense. But thought those deserve to mention. Anything else that I'm missing?
Do you want to see the video Stevie's talking about?
It's so funny.
Sure, for the viewers at home. Do we have rights to show this?
Yeah, it's just on Instagram. It's fair use. And I'm going to keep it muted because, again, there's no volume control on Instagram. No, you're good. All right, so it knocks it down. Boom. Hit it.
Rip someone's face off.
Oh, it's so bad.
That cameraman needs a raise. Oh my God, it's so good.
Moving on, we'll move on to the association, the NBA. I did have a couple things I want to talk about. The first thing I did want to talk about, though, is Ty Jerome from
UVA.
Him and the Cleveland Cavaliers, not the Virginia Cavaliers, they, coming into, I believe, tonight or played Tuesday, Wednesday, they are winners of 11 of their last 12. They just stomped the Knicks this past week. Then they beat the Grizzlies. So they're 2 playoff teams and, like, high playoff teams, not like the 8 seed. These are like 2, 3, 4 teams in their conference. Jerome had 19 points in the blowout of New York, and then he followed it up with 26 points in the 6-point win over Memphis on Sunday. He's averaging 13.6 points per game in the month of February. But the bigger thing is his shooting percentages. He's shooting 52.7% from the field and 48.1% from 3. Like, Cleveland is 47-10 on the year coming into Tuesday. That's the best record in the NBA. And they are, I believe, 6 games up on Boston in the Eastern Conference. And Ty Jerome, yes, a lot of guys on there. Darius Garland, Donovan Spider Mitchell, Jarrett Allen has been phenomenal. But Ty Jerome has been a revelation. He legitimately could win 6th Man of the Year. and most improved player in the year, both in the same year. He's been fantastic.
I do love how NBA fans, again, how out of touch the NBA is. They had no idea who Ty Jerome was. Like, this guy's awesome. Where'd he come from? Like, oh, yeah, he's got a national championship.
He's got a ring that a lot of guys don't have. But no, I wanted to bring him up. I wanted to talk about him. He's been fantastic of late, and he's been great to watch. He's
one of my favorites. I absolutely love him.
And he really is embodying what a sixth man is. He's the first guy off the bench, and he's playing meaningful minutes, and he is making a difference. I mean, 26 points in a 6-point win, so you needed like all of those points, basically. That's a true difference maker. And it's, like I said, it's nice to see him get appreciated for it, whereas college fans knew it and saw it. And even a lot of college fans didn't appreciate it because they want to shit on UVA a lot. But man, to say I'm surprised, I'm surprised at how many points. I mean, 26, I'm still surprised at. But am I surprised that he's succeeding? Absolutely not.
I'm glad he got his shot because I was worried he was going to get run out of the NBA and they wouldn't give him his chance.
Yes.
After the first 3 years. I'm glad he finally got his chance, and now you're seeing that, yeah, this guy's he's a basketball player, is what he is.
No, and
you can put the ball in the hoop.
Yes, and I think it also goes back to that Virginia UVA mindset. Like Malcolm Brogdon, I read a thing about him. He talked about it that like UVA guys are built differently because of what Tony Bennett taught them about life and about how to play basketball. And yeah, again, people wanted to dump on them because of how much defense they played. And that's bad basketball. But look at all the
because
dudes
they didn't actually watch how
created.
Their offense ran. Their offense got so many open looks, and they were, I believe, the most efficient offense that year. They won the national championship.
Yes,
and that was also, I remember that, like Charles Barkley going, "Oh, this game in Texas Tech UVA, like this game's going to end in 45-42. Like these are two defensive teams." That game ended like what?
I believe it is
like
85-77, I believe is the final score. It was like the highest scoring national championships in the last decade, one of the highest scoring of all time.
Those offenses were efficient. They could push and pull whenever they needed to. Like, that's how good those two teams were.
Yeah, and it just goes back to the resilience, too, right? You can't discount the resilience it took for Ty Jerome to be on the team that lost to that team from Maryland, whoever the hell they are, that shall not be named, and then come back and win the next year. The amount of resilience that takes, that's immeasurable, right? And like I said, am I shocked that he's succeeding? Absolutely not. This doesn't shock me in the slightest. Am I surprised he's putting up almost 30 points in some of these games? Yeah, because 26 points is a lot of freaking points to score, regardless of what level you're playing. He's at the highest level in the world right now. So wanted to give him a shot. I thought that was well deserved and long time coming, to be honest. Moving on, we saw the first time really that the Lakers unleashed Luka and LeBron together without minutes restrictions, without like any like, hey, is Luka still a little hurt? And we saw them, play pretty well. Luka played 31 minutes. I believe LeBron played 33 minutes. LA beat Denver with the Joker and the championship pedigree that they have by 23 points. I think it was 123-100, if I'm not mistaken. Doncic led all scorers in that game with 32 points. He had 10 rebounds, 7 assists. LeBron had 25, 9, and 5, so you saw the production from them. I think Austin Reeves had 23 and 7. Rui Hachimura had, I think, 21 points. And I think that's more of the bigger thing. Yes, we saw Luka and LeBron do Luka and LeBron things that we've seen them do forever, right? Make things look easy, hit shots that people can't hit, take over the game at certain points against, again, a quality opponent in Denver. This wasn't like they played the Hornets or the Zards, who are, sorry, this is a quality championship contender and a team with a championship pedigree in the Nuggets, and they were able to do this against them. But I think the biggest X factor for them going forward is still going to be the supporting cast in Austin Reeves and someone else along the way. Austin Reeves is probably the biggest one there. He's the next scorer. He's averaging about 20 points a game, I don't know if you know that, which is amazing for an undrafted kid, right, who started his career at Wichita State. The Lakers, they've won, I believe, 14 of their last 18 games. They're playing really good basketball right now. Do you know who he finished his career with, Austin Reeves?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, yeah. Went the Shockers to Oklahoma. And did you know he elected to not be drafted?
Why?
What? Yeah, here's what happened. The Pistons were going to take him with the 42nd overall pick in whatever year he was coming out.
He said,
And,
Detroit.
well, that's conventional wisdom is what I said too. Oh, yeah, Detroit, good choice. No, really what he was saying was that if I'm getting picked at 42nd and beyond, they're going to sign me to a two-way contract as opposed to if I get picked earlier, they're going to sign me to a full NBA contract. And so he was like, if I'm going to get picked that late, I might as well not sign with the team, become an undrafted free agent where I can choose who I'm going to sign with because they're going to sign me to a two-way contract anyway. Do you follow me?
Yeah.
So he was like, oh, unless it's like these couple teams, I'm not going to do it because I'll see if they'll sign me in free agency. And if not, someone still is going to because they know I have that pedigree. And I'm going to make the same contract, same money as if I was picked number 47, right? And so the Lakers think we're number 2 on his list behind Milwaukee, sign with them, and the rest is history, which is kind of an interesting bet on yourself, weird, quirky story, to be honest. Moving on, the Thunder and the Timberwolves, they played a home-and-home on Sunday and Monday. On Sunday, the Thunder handled the Wolves behind SGA's, that's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's, 37-8-8. But on Monday, the Wolves outscored the Thunder 41-19 in the fourth quarter to erase a 24-point fourth quarter deficit. It's not just 24-point second half deficit, 24 points in the fourth quarter. They forced OT. Anthony Edwards, the Ant-Man, had a crucial block on SGA in that extra session as Minnesota won 131-128. What's crazy is with 3:09, so 3 minutes and 9 seconds left to play in the fourth, the Thunder had a 99.8% win probability. They were up 121-109, and they lost that game. That's crazy, right? Last thing here I want to talk about is this guy fits into everything that we talk about on this show. Josh Hart. Do you know Josh Hart, boy?
Yes, I know who Josh Hart is. Villanova, we talked about him extensively during the postseason last year.
I just making sure. For the people at home, I thought you were just going to be nice about it instead of being,
No, I didn't like your tone.
Trying to be condescending towards me.
I didn't like your
tone.
I'm saying one thing, and you're contraring me.
Thanks. Well, Josh Hart plays for the Knicks still, by the way. Despite their loss to Boston on Sunday, he had 20 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists. In the month of February, he is averaging 20.7 points, 9.6 rebounds, and 6.4 assists per game while shooting 55.8% from the field. And he also averages 39.9 minutes per game, which is and he's third in all of the NBA in most total minutes played this year behind Anthony Edwards and his teammate Mikal Bridges, Mikal Bridges is another Villanova guy, I believe, as well. So I want to give Josh Hart a shout out. When you look at win shares, which is essentially the NBA's equivalent to WAR, wins above replacement for baseball, right? Josh Hart is up there. He's up there offensively and defensively. He's only about 6'4", 6'5", but the dude, again, averaging 10 rebounds in the month of February. That means he wants it more. It's very Charles Barkley-like what he's doing.
That's what he did in the postseason last year. He played the hardest, right? I mean, he's what, 6'4"-ish?
Yeah, he's in terms of NBA, he's not that big.
Size, he is not big.
No, but he's phenomenal. He's fun to watch, and I wanted to give him a shout out.
Let's see his official roster height. 6'4".
Anything else basketball-wise before I move on to some soccer? Because I wanted to talk about some of this.
Nope, go ahead.
All right, good. Soccer, I'm gonna start here in Serie A, to be honest with you. Serie A, if you don't know, that's the Italian top flight soccer league. So going into play this weekend, Napoli, not taking a Napoli, but they were up by 2 points on Internazionale Milan, on top of the Serie A table. But Inter, thanks to a goal by Argentinian Lautaro Martinez in the 78th minute, defeated Genoa 1-0 at the San Siro on Saturday afternoon. And coupled that with earlier in the day, well, about the same time, but Napoli was playing at Como. Como, for some of you pop culture people, yes, that is the Lake Como, the very famous lake that, I think George Clooney has a house on. It's beautiful, right? Well, Como's Asan Diallo netted the game-winning goal as the home side defeated Serie A leading at that time Napoli 2-1 Sunday. The loss coupled with the Inter win put Inter, or the Nerazzurri, atop the Serie A table. But more importantly, I want to talk about Como. All right. So Como, very Wrexham-like story here. 5 years ago, they were playing non-league football the same way Wrexham was, like literally not in the paid leagues. They had been demoted so far down in very similar circumstances to Wrexham, where financial mismanagement, all this stuff had doomed the club, and they were basically done. But these Indonesian tobacco billionaire magnates came in and bought the club and have resurrected the side. So in 5 years, they went from playing non-league, so literally, again, essentially semi-pro ball, to they're in the top flight of Italian football. They sit 13th in the table, which is pretty much in the middle, towards the bottom end, but about in the middle, right? So they're not in that much danger of relegation. They just got this win over Como. Diao is he's a teenager from Spain. He's a true possible stud at that striker position. I think his goals have all come against the best teams. Napoli, Juventus, Fiorentina. He's done really good and amazing. And here's some names for you, Kamlo, about this Como team. Thierry Henry is a minority stakeholder. And Kamlo, do you know who their manager is?
For Como?
Yeah. This is a name I know you know who this person is.
If you say Peter Crouch, I'm going to shit.
I wish it was Peter Crouch. It is Cesc Fabregas.
What?
He's their manager, yes.
That's awesome.
So
love Cesc Fabregas. A good Arsenal guy.
Yes, so Cesc, his last year played for Como after these billionaire guys bought the club. And he played for like a year, made a couple appearances, then afterwards joined their coaching staff. And they went through a coaching change, and they promoted him, essentially interim manager, is what we call it. I think have a different European name to it. But in Como, you might know this as well. Not anyone can just be a manager of a club. You have to essentially have licensure from UEFA and FIFA to manage a club. And so they tried to make Fabregas the head manager, but he hadn't met the licensure requirements yet. So they had to make him interim manager, then take it away, have someone else be manager, then sack that person, and then put Fabregas back up once he got the licensure requirements. But again, he's leading a team that was done for a couple years ago. They're in the middle of the table, just knocked off the top team in the division. And a couple cool things. They're now the wealthiest club in Italy, which is remarkable and crazy because the billionaires who bought it, they're top 100 in the world and wealthiest people. These tobacco magnates.
Beautiful stadium, by the way.
Yes, I was just about to say that. This stadium is
in the
literally
Swiss Alps on the lake.
It's on the lake.
The Italian Alps, sorry. On the lakes.
And when I say on the lake, it literally is on the lake. It's
right here.
Yes. From one view of the stadium through the corner, you can see the lake. It is one of the most beautiful stadiums and settings I've ever seen for any sport. I want them to be our team. Just saying. I want that to be our team because I was like, this is so cool to me.
I got nothing against Cesc Fabregas.
I thought you would like him.
Go Como.
Yeah. Moving on, a couple of Premier League things for us here. Nottingham Forest, they opened the scoring in the 6th minute against Newcastle United, but Newcastle brought off 4 straight goals in the first half, including 2 from Swedish international Alexander Isak, which were his 50th career Premier League goals to end that first half. But it was a nervy finish for the home side at St. James's Park, as Forest had several grade A chances in that second half, and were able to convert on 2 of them to make the final score, though, 4-3. They put Newcastle level on points with 4th place Man City and just 3 points behind Nottingham Forest for 3rd place. So that was a crazy game there. Just wanted to mention that. Anything else soccer-wise? I had a couple other things, but not as important.
No.
That you want to say for that?
No, I mean, it's shaping up to be an interesting season, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the table is as crazily laid out in the EPL as we've seen in a very long time.
Agreed. I also wanted to bring us some soccer stuff so we can plug one of our new, not necessarily spin-off shows, but content shows that are What Caught My Eye soccer show. hosted by our boy Darius Samuel. That'll be coming soon, right? He can go into more depth about that. He is a Chelsea supporter. I left out their poor result against Aston Villa just for him, but wanted to plug that for us. That's why I wanted to bring some soccer stuff. And I wanted to talk about Como because that Como story to me is remarkable.
Yeah, I'm on board.
Moving on to our final segment of the evening, which is our favorite segment, brought to you as always by One Legacy Title and Escrow in Jacksonville, Florida. Visit them at onelegacyflorida.com and follow them on Instagram at onelegacyflorida to see how they can help you with your next house closing. One Legacy Title and Escrow, because your legacy matters. I also wanted to give them a big shout out and thank them. They attended, I believe it was NC State Alabama baseball game at the stadium of the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp for the Jacks Baseball Classic. They sent us some pics and videos that I posted to our Instagram. It was pretty cool. I like that. Which, again, allows me to say, if anyone out there is listening and wants to send us stuff from the sporting events you go to, especially if you've got a koozie. If not, we can give you a koozie. Please do so. I love it. I think that's so cool that they were able to send us that.
Yeah.
For that event. But this week for our favorites, we went with our favorite hockey goal scorers of all time. So the guys who light the lamp that we like the best. Again, not our who we think are the best, right? Because that's, or you just go, who has the most goals ever, right? Not who we think are the best, but who are our favorite goal scorers of all time. Who would like to start?
I'll go first. Honorable mention, I'm going to go with a guy, Nick, you brought up, I believe it was last week. I'm going to go Ilya Kovalchuk in the honorable mention spot. Love Ilya Kovalchuk, and I think a lot of people forget just kind of how prolific and dominant that dude was as a goal scorer. In fact, it's funny, I just saw a clip of him earlier today of when I think he was playing for Florida, back when they had like the cool like lunging Panthers jersey. And it was like they were playing against the Penguins back when Crosby was like a little 18-year-old brat. And like it was when Kovalchuk pointed at him in the penalty box and then went on to score. It was awesome. You know, Ilya Kovalchuk, that dude was an assassin.
I think people forget about him because he's best known for signing that ridiculous like 13-year contract and then leaving and going back to Russia. So like his totals in the NHL aren't as high, but as good of a goal scorer as there's ever been.
Yeah, he was amazing. Number 5, I'm going to go with Connor McDavid. You know, I mean, I think it's a young man who needs no introduction. We talked about him at length earlier when we were mentioning the Four Nations. Jesus Christ. We were talking about the Four Nations.
I thought that sounded good.
It did. Take a sip. We talked about him at length when we mentioned the Four Nations earlier. He's a guy who can put one in, can slot one at even on his worst nights, can find the back of the net, you know, and I think that's what I look for in a goal scorer, right? That's what I look for when I'm drafting a fantasy hockey team. That's what I look for when I'm creating like an all-star team in the NHL video games that we love to play so much.
Chill.
Yeah. Number 4, I'm going to go with Connor McDavid's dynamic duo, one of the best 1-2 punches we've seen in a very long time. I'm going to go with Leon Draisaitl. I think if you have Connor McDavid on your list, you have to have Leon Draisaitl because Connor McDavid is a wonderful all-around player who, again, shows up in big moments. Leon Draisaitl is that consistent net finder on that team. And watching his dominant numbers the last couple of years has just been so much fun to watch. And I think it speaks volumes that I'm picking the two of them because they are playing in the Canadian market. It's not as easy for us here in Virginia to find those games and watch them. But when they're on, I will go out of my way to watch Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah, I will stay up if they're on ESPN Plus and watch them play. If they're playing like the Vancouver Canucks, that's to me must watch TV every time. It does stink that they're in Edmonton. As much as I want to visit Edmonton, by the way. I would love to. It looks beautiful. Mm-hmm. But it hurts us as hockey fans where we're located.
Yes. It
feels like Mike Trout.
Yeah.
Of hockey.
You just miss out on so much. And, you know, I mean, that's another issue that we've alluded to earlier tonight. Number 3, I'm going to go with Sidney Crosby. It sucks to say it as a Caps fan, but I'm going to say Sidney Crosby. He's another guy that has come up in big moments, in big spots, and I think one of the draws for me about Sidney Crosby, and it's a trait that I'm going to come up with again here a little later, is the dude gets hyped for every goal. The dude gets hyped for every goal. And he's been doing it for so long, and he's done it at such a high level. And not only in Pittsburgh, right? This is another guy who, had big shoes to fill stepping into the league. He's filled those shoes and then some, but he's also a guy who, up until Connor McDavid, had the weight of a country on his back and has consistently produced and upheld the gold standards that, he didn't necessarily ask for, but he inherited. And he's lived up to that and then some. So I gotta put Sidney Crosby on my list.
To that, and again, it does feel wrong to speak positively about him. Mm-hmm. But I think that U.S. win over Canada was like the first time that a Sidney Crosby Canadian hockey team had lost an international game in 26 tries.
Yeah.
Literally, if he was on the team for them, they had won their last 26 games in international.
Not only has he shouldered that burden, but he's done it while wearing the C on his chest. And I'm not trying to throw any shade, but having a C on your jersey in the NHL carries so much more weight than any other sport. And so for him to just live up to those expectations for as long as he has, I would be doing myself in hockey, and I think this list a disservice by not having him on there. Number 2, I think it's the only player outside of the modern era that I have on my list. I'm gonna go with Wayne the Great Gretzky.
Oh, you didn't put Reggie.
No, not Reggie Leach. I'm gonna go with the great one. It's again, it would feel criminal to not have Wayne Gretzky on my list. He's a guy that I think anyone who grew up watching the sport, playing the sport, or even just thinking about the sport, Wayne Gretzky comes to mind, and he was a guy who just was phenomenal at it, right? There's a reason why we're chasing his record, right? In DC right now, Ovechkin is chasing his record. I'm going to put Wayne Gretzky in the 2 slot, and then it shouldn't really be a surprise to anybody who's going to be in that 1 seed. Hat trick against Edmonton, a goal against Calgary tonight. He is now a dozen goals away. I'm going with Mr. Johnny on the spot, Alexander the Great 8 Ovechkin, Joe B. I've been blessed to, be a Caps fan for as long as I have, and I've been blessed to grow up as a Caps fan in the Ovechkin era, because every goal that this dude scores, whether it's an empty net goal, a power play goal, an even strength goal, a game winner, every goal this guy scores, it's like it's his first one. It's just like his first one. He's throwing himself into the glass.
Had a heck of a wedding, yeah, Brett Favre.
He's fun. He's just fun to watch. He's an icon. He's a role model. He's just everything I would want in a goal scorer. Just a pure assassin. Everybody knows on the power play where the shot is coming from, and nobody can stop it. Year after year after year, we see the memes, the tweets, the videos of people just saying, how is this guy scoring? Can we just tell our team to not leave Ovechkin open on that side of the ice during the power play? And he continues to score from his office. I'm going with Alexander Ovechkin in the 1 slot. I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you.
All right.
Boy.
I've got an honorable mention this week. Honorable mention, Rick Nash. Rick Nasty.
Love
Columbus. I love the big guys that just get to the front of the net. Go do something. And Nash I feel like he had such incredible hands around the net.
Mm-hmm.
He was a big dude, but he was just he finessed.
The touch of a feather.
Yeah, incredible. Number 5, your boy Comlo, Ovi, Johnny on the spot. What I loved about obviously I wasn't a Caps fan, but I did go see Ovi his sophomore year when they were giving out the Rookie of the Year plaques when no one was in the I believe it was either MCI or Verizon Center at that point. They still had the old Screaming Eagles jerseys.
It would have been Verizon. I think MCI was
a little before that.
If it was If it was Screaming Eagle jerseys, I think that's MCI Center. Because when it was Verizon Center, they were in the red and whites.
I think there was a couple. No, yeah.
Either way,
it would have been Verizon Center.
Ovi, he was a guy that you could root for, just as a hockey fan, because of how hard he played, and that he wasn't just a goal scorer. He also, if you had your head down, he'd light you up, right? And also, when you have a spot on the ice nicknamed your office, just shows how productive you are.
But Verizon Center was 06, by the way.
Ooh.
Ovechkin's first year was 05 to 06.
So it was right when they changed it to Verizon
I thought Ovechkin's
Center.
first year was then.
He was on NHL 07 cover with the Screaming Eagle jersey, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, nailed it. All right, moving on.
Ovechkin's first year is 05, 06. So, yeah, it would have been the Verizon Center.
That's cool. I still have that Rookie of the Year plaque.
Oh, yeah.
Moving on, number 4. How about a Calgary player, Jerome McGinley?
McGinley.
Yes.
Love Jerome.
And I picked some of these guys because I like playing with them in the video games.
Yes.
Jerome McGinley was so good.
Yes. Must draft.
And I love those Flames jerseys. They were just unique.
Clean.
They weren't. I don't even know if they were good jerseys. I just liked them.
Clean.
The horse.
Yes, the horse.
The fire horse is sweet.
Yeah. Number three, another guy I love playing in those early NHL games because he was just lightning on the ice. Paul Correa.
Paul Correa's shout out.
Awesome. Paul Correa was unstoppable in those early video games. He was too fast. He would go around everyone. I loved Paul Correa, just a smaller guy that would just skate around everyone. He's also up there. He's
gotta see this dude's stats.
He's got good stats. He's got good numbers.
989 games played, 402 goals, 587 apples for 989 points.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Paul Correa, great guy. Number 2, another big man going hard at the net, Joe Thornton.
Oh, come on.
Well, you didn't like Joe Thornton, the beard and everything.
He's not a goal scorer.
That hobo. I like what Torts said about Joe Thornton. He's gonna be a very good hockey player who never won anything.
Joe Thornton is an assist man. I believe he led the league in assists.
He also has 430 goals.
Because he had Patrick Marleau skating with him.
True.
And Joe.
I just like Joe Thornton. I like
Joe Thornton too. Joe Thornton's a good player, but he's an assist guy. He's like
that hobo.
He's like Getzlav.
That hobo.
And Andrzej Kopitar. They're assist guys.
I love it. Joe Thornton. Yeah, you love the big guys, dude. That's as big as they come in the forward spot.
I'm all over the place. I want either a guy like Paul Correa who's skating around everyone, or I want the biggest body just.
Let me find out you have St. Louis in the one hole.
No.
You want to talk about small guys skating around? Martin St. Louis.
I know. He did cross my mind, but I thought about his teammate more, Stamkos. But no, I did not go with him.
Okay.
Number 1, Joe Sakic.
Okay, there it is.
Another guy where those Avs team, I just the first thing I can remember about hockey was watching the Avs team and watching Sakic and Forsberg and Waugh and Adam Foote.
Is that the jersey you have that has the pad clips in the sleeves or whatever?
Yes.
So, a funny story I heard about Joe Sakic. Your favorite player, Kamlo, Sean Avery, was on
Sean Avery.
your guys' favorite Patriot, Julian Edelman's podcast. And Edelman asked him about, hey, is there anyone that was off limits, you were not allowed to chirp at? And he said, yes, there was one player that was my rookie year is playing for the Red Wings, and Brett Hull was on the team, and I was living in his garage, and we're playing the Avalanche, and I am giving it to Joe Sakic because he showed up in a suit to the game, and I was just roasting his suit. And he's I feel a tug from behind. And then I feel someone just rip my ass down to the ground on the bench like I'm parent. And it's Brett Hull. And he's looking at me. He goes, "You will not speak to Mr. Sakic that way."
Damn, he was
Mr.
Sakic.
Yes. And he was okay, done. He's that's the only person that someone or a coach had ever
told
me.
Grab some pine shit bag.
Yes, is off off limits. You will not speak to Mr. Sakic that way.
Go sit down there by the backup goalie.
Yeah. I thought
That's
was
an all-time story.
Yep, I thought that was great.
Good list, Stevie.
Yep. All right, so I will like to preface my list as goal scorer to me is guys who are I know the goal of the game is to score a goal, but guys who are just out there and their whole mindset is how often can I score? I'm out there to shoot. I'm like a 3-point shooter. I'm out here to shoot as much as I can to score as much as I can. So that's how I got my list. So my honorable mention is Austin Matthews, the current Captain America. He is sitting on back-to-back 60-goal seasons. He just missed out, scored the golden number of 69 goals last year. But he is going to be the goal scorer of this generation. It does kind of stink that he's in Toronto. You wish he'd be, especially as an American, in an American market, and especially like a bigger American market to bring more of that to us. Again, especially a guy who's a Latino from Arizona who's doing this. That's like just crazy, right? That's not a normal market that you see guys come from, and he is arguably the best American player out there right now. Number 5, I have the grade 8, Alexander Ovechkin. I used to not like him earlier in his career because I thought he was as selfish as it could be. He was only looking to score goals, and he just would take cheap shots at guys. So he wanted the highlight of him laying some dude out who wasn't looking. But Barry Trotz came in and said, if you want to win a championship, you can't do this shit anymore. And he became a two-way player. His defense went through the roof. His passing went through the roof. And I don't think it's any coincidence that they won after Trotz came in and changed his mindset. And since he changed it, Ovechkin has been one of my favorite players to watch. He's must-watch because he does all those things. Yes, now he's got some age. It looks like some age on him where he's not necessarily cherry picking, but he's picking his spots because he knows he physically can't do it all anymore. But the fact that he's still putting up these numbers is on his way to probably another 40-goal campaign. And how old is he? What, 38? 39? Mm-hmm. Is amazing to me. So Ovechkin's my number 5. Number 4 is Chris Kreider of my Rangers. One of, if not my favorite Ranger of all time. I think I said this last week. He's creeping up the Rangers leaderboards. I think he's only behind Jean Rattel and Rod Gilbert for most goals ever as a Ranger, which is incredible and speaks to his longevity. He scored 52 goals, I think, a couple of years ago. So Chris Kreider gets the dirty work done, knows how to put the puck in the net. He's my number 4. Number 3, I said this guy last week, Jeremy Roenick, one of my favorite hockey players of all time. I have, again, that awesome-ass Phoenix Coyotes JR jersey. I love Roenick, another big body who, again, is just out there. He's scoring goals. Number 2 is the Finnish Flash, Teemu Selanne. He's all Finnish, no Swedish. Selanne lit the world on fire when he came over here. I think he led the league in goals his first season. Everyone knows him with your boy Paul Correa on the Mighty Ducks. They made an incredible pair. But Selanne, in terms of just true goal scorers, is one of the greatest ever.
He's number 12 on the all-time list.
Yeah, could be higher. He's phenomenal. And my number 1, and boy, you brought him up, is Jarome Iginla. I love Jarome Iginla. He was just so consistent, so solid. It's a shame he didn't get his cup, right? He went to Colorado, and I don't think Colorado ever won.
No, I don't think he ever won a cup.
It is a shame that Jarome Iginla didn't get that, but I love me some Jarome Iginla. Again, the true definition of a sniper, a sniper and a power forward put together really is what he was. And a guy who just had a nose for goal, could put the puck in the net. And I guess this is just to appease our father because he's going to say something to us. I don't want to say because I'm wearing a Rangers shirt, but we at least should mention Mike Bossy. The late, great Mike Bossy, a prolific scorer. He only played like 10, 11 years, but like every year he played, he had like 50 goals every year, which is crazy. If you look at the all-time leaders in goals scored, it'll show like their games played next to them. And he has by far the lowest number of games played. I don't think he even played 800 games, and everyone else is like 1,400.
He played 752. To put that in perspective, the guy in front of him, so he's number 23 on the list. The guy in front of him, Mark Recchi, who's number 22 on the list, games played 1,652. They are 4 goals apart.
Yes,
he has almost 1,000 less. He has 900 less games played and has 4 less goals.
So that's at least to appease our father, so he doesn't text us.
He's gonna.
Oh, you
text
missed
us.
Mike Bossy. You missed Mike Bossy. Mike Bossy. And here's what I have to say to that: Potvin sucks. Okay, that's all I have to say to that.
There we go.
And anything else before we wrap this up?
Nope. See you next week.
Yep. All right, that's going to do it for us here at What Caught My Eye. As always, follow us on all of our socials. That's on X, on Instagram, and on Facebook at WCME_sports. Our episodes drop every Wednesday at noon on Spotify, on YouTube, and on iHeartRadio. Be on the lookout for our little content shows that come out. Like I know the great Doug Howard had a show that he released about the Luka Doncic trade. We also had a great show with Tony Pauline of Sportskeeda breaking down the NFL draft. Combine is going on this week, so
we'll be releasing some of those clips on social media this week with the Combine going.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Be on the lookout for our golf show with our resident golf expert Nathan Bursack and our soccer show with our friend Darius Samuel. Those should be coming out soon as well. But as always, be decent to each other. Have a good one. We'll see you next time. Take care, Guatemala.